People are naturally inclined to stay away from things they find gross or disgusting. Does that apply to ideas as well? And what about political or extreme views? Yoel Inbar teaches psychology at the University of Toronto. His research looks at how disgust shapes our social, political, and moral beliefs. And he joins us now on that. Good to have you here in our studio.
Great to be here, Steve.
Well, let's start from the real beginning here. The evolutionary role of disgust. What is it?
Yeah, well, Darwin first wrote about this, actually. And the way he put it is that disgust functioned to keep us from eating things that would be bad for us. And there's a lot of truth to that. Now we think it's a little bit broader than that, in that it functions to keep us away from stuff that would make us sick. So think of germ theory of disease, super recent invention for us, right? But we have adaptations that kind of function like an implicit germ theory. So stuff that could infect us, we're averse to, we want to stay away from it, we don't want it contacting us, we definitely don't want to put it in our mouth and eat it.
So this might have been a useful theory to keep in the back of your head during a global pandemic.
Yeah, it's sort of made that salient for all of us over the past couple of years, for sure.
We're going to show a picture here, and for those of you who are listening on podcast, the picture is from the 1996 film Trainspotting, directed by Danny Boyle, and we see Ewan McGregor here. His character has got his head inside a truly disgusting, filthy-looking toilet. And apparently, Yoel, this scene is widely used by psychologists to induce disgust. What's the story here?
Well, we've grossed out a lot of undergraduates by showing them this clip, and it really works. So if you haven't seen Trainspotting, and you want to get good and grossed out, watch it. Watch this part. He really digs into this filthy toilet. It's pretty awful. And the idea behind it is we want to make people grossed out in the lab so we can see how that affects their thinking and their judgments. We need a good way to do that. This clip is a highly, highly effective way.
And it really works.
Oh man, sometimes, we warn people ahead of time, but it's hard to convey exactly how intense it's going to be. So people have gotten physically ill. They've been like, I'm sorry, I have to stop. I have to go to the washroom. Maybe I have to throw up. That's how bad this clip can be.
And okay, so you show them the clip, and then what they might have done had they not seen the clip, and what they now do, having seen the clip, how are they different?
Well, there's a range of effects that disgust has on people's judgments. We've looked a lot at the effect that it has on people's moral judgments and the extent to which it can make people more morally judgmental or punitive. So typically we would show them that disgust clip, or we would show another group, like a more neutral clip, like a nature video or something like that, and we would compare the judgments between the two.
Got it. How does disgust influence our political views?
So in general, across the world, people who are more on the right and who are particularly more what we call socially traditionalist tend to be more easily disgusted. And we can talk about the way that we actually measure that, how easily disgusted somebody is. We typically do questionnaires. So we ask them to imagine different situations and tell us just how disgusted would you be in these different situations. And then we have some data that show that the people who say they would be more disgusted also are people who are actually less willing to do disgusting things. So you score high on the questionnaire, and you're less willing to put your hand in a tub of goo, for example. That's one task that was done in the lab.
Okay, let's do another example here. I'm being cute here. I'm playing around the outside edges of this, but let's just go right for the jugular here. A lot of people over the last 5 years have been absolutely disgusted by the conduct of the former president of the United States.
Yeah.
Do you bring that specific example to bear in your political workshops?
I knew you were going to go Trump.
Well,
so yeah. You have to.
Seems kind of obvious, right?
Yeah, exactly right. It's the low-hanging fruit. So here's what's complicated about this. People often use disgusted in kind of a metaphorical way that might not line up with them actually being viscerally disgusted. So you might say, your behavior disgusts me. I'm disgusted by Trump. I'm disgusted by the salaries made by bankers. All of this stuff that has this flavor of moral judgment. I don't like it, is what people are saying. It's morally wrong, is what they're saying. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're physically disgusted. And so that's where you really need the research to see, okay, is it actually the visceral emotion of disgust, or is it more kind of a metaphorical use of that term to just say, I'm morally outraged?
Have you been able to figure out through your research whether liberals are more disgusted by the antics of a conservative politician, or conservatives are more disgusted by the antics of a liberal politician?
Yeah, so we haven't looked at that directly. There's some work, not from my lab, that shows that liberals tend to be better at tuning out disgust cues, at least in some situations.
Would Trump be one of those situations? Because it doesn't seem like they
No,
filtered him out
Trump
too
would
well.
not be one of those situations. So this looked specifically at people's reactions to gay people. And that's a group, obviously, that liberals tend to like. And that conservatives sometimes can be more negative towards, right? So that's a little bit of a confound there, and it's not clear for other groups necessarily whether maybe liberals might lean into their disgust feelings there.
Got it. We know society is more polarized, particularly in the United States, but also up here too. We can see the role that anger plays in, for example, political election campaigns. What role does disgust play in that polarization, in your view?
Yeah. So this is a bit speculative, but I think what is particularly dangerous about disgust is it's a distancing emotion. So anger really is about approach. Like if you've made me mad, I kind of want to get up in your face. But if you've disgusted me, I don't want anything to do with you. I want to be far away from you. And particularly in the US, people have talked about this distancing or sorting into different partisan bubbles as being a really problematic part of polarization, right? So if you think that these people are disgusting, you literally don't want anything to do with them, obviously they never have a chance to change your mind, right?
Okay, let's try this. The conventional wisdom would suggest that men, more than women, might embrace disgust or being grossed out than the converse. Is that true?
Yeah, it's definitely true in self-report. So on these self-report disgust scales, women consistently are more disgust sensitive than men are. There is some work and a grain of salt with this stuff, but you can do a physiological measurement where you show people disgusting stimuli and you see literally how much they sweat. It's a measure of arousal, physiological arousal. And there they don't see the gender differences. So some people based on that would say, oh, well, it's just the men trying to look tough.
How do you, is there, I guess, what is the measuring stick that you actually use to measure how much disgust one person has over another?
Yeah, so typically we use that self-report measure, where it's a scale with multiple items where we ask them how disgusted would you be in these different situations.
Okay. What role does disgust play in our moral judgments?
Well, there are many people who think that at least in some cases, we have a kind of an intuitive feeling of disgust, ugh, and that then drives us to say, this thing is morally wrong. So moral psychologists have constructed these cases where somebody does something disgusting, but that doesn't have an obvious victim. Still, nonetheless, often people will say, no, that's not morally okay.
Is it your impression that there is more disgust going around these days in politics than, say, 25 or 50 years ago?
Yeah, I do feel like you get the language around disgust more. And actually, in my lab, we've done some language analyses that sort of would back that up. That may just be a side effect of polarization. People use this disgust language when they want to convey strong moral disapproval, right? And the extent to which people want to do that about partisans on the other side, definitely in the US, has increased over the years.
I'm just imagining right now, I don't think people in the 1950s said, I'm disgusted with Dwight Eisenhower as president.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
Whereas people, well, probably from Bill Clinton on, well, maybe even from Richard Nixon on, if you want to go back far enough, would talk about being disgusted with a certain political leader.
Right. So that kind of like partisan sorting into the Republican Democratic parties in the US, that's something that really like accelerated, well, since Nixon and the Southern strategy, really. So that I think is just amped up the partisan animosity and the, kind of hostile partisanship between Republicans and Democrats in the US.
Is there anything constructive about disgust?
Well, I think it's a useful instinct. Don't eat poo. And
But once you get beyond that, I mean, I think we all know that part.
once you get beyond that, I really question its status as a moral guide. There are certainly some ethicists who have said, we ought to tend to that. They've talked about the wisdom of repugnance. I don't think there's a lot to that. I think it's a useful instinct, but I think when we use it in our moral judgments, it mainly leads us to do things that are questionable.
How do we know if it's effectively serving us or perhaps alternatively holding us back?
Yeah, I think really we have to think about, well, setting that emotion aside, kind of what are our moral norms and standards? What do we want to accomplish? And then we can be in a position, I guess, to evaluate, well, is this emotion making us react in a way that's consistent with those beliefs or not? I think the problem is that, like all strong emotions, it just kind of grabs you, right? And so it can be hard to kind of put it aside and say, well, is this really a judgment I want to be making?
But is it your view that we should all be trying to be less captured by disgust that we have?
Yeah, yeah. When it comes to moral and political judgments, definitely.
We should.
Yeah.
How do we do that? Because it doesn't seem like we're able to do much of anything these days as it relates to not hating the other side, you know?
I wish I could give you a good answer. All I can tell you is, you can practice this stuff and you can become aware of this stuff. Like you know what disgust feels like, right? And I think it's useful always to question your moral kind of snap judgments. And I think that goes for people on both sides of the aisle. But it is a difficult process and it does not come naturally.
You're a professor of psychology.
Yeah.
Meaning you presumably could have chosen to study any number of different areas within the psychological field.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
yet you've chosen this one.
Yeah.
How come?
Yeah. I just think that this is such a cool emotion.
I got to admit, you're the first person I think I've ever met who's tried to become an expert in the notion of disgust.
Yeah, that tells you something about me, I guess.
Maybe.
Yeah. So I just think it's so cool that this emotion that evolved to fulfill this kind of survival function and a reaction to these like kind of basic physical things has this. It's gotten its tentacles into all sorts of judgments and beliefs that we have now, and I just think that's wild.
Do you think it's an understudied field?
I actually think there's quite a few people who are looking at disgust, and it's gotten a lot of attention over maybe the last 20, 25 years in moral psychology. Before that, people really didn't talk about it, but there's been a lot of interest in it more recently.
All right, I'm going to finish with this question. Who's the most disgusting person you have ever either met or had exposure to? Let's go. Let's get you on the record, Professor.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I'm not a Donald Trump fan, so I think we could just say Trump and leave it there.
Why am I not shocked that he's at the top of your list?
Yeah, he's at the top of lots of people's list, I guess.
Gotcha. Well, you may have him to kick around a little more over the next couple of years.
God, I hope not.
We shall see. If you become more disgusted with him, we can always get you back here and do a little therapy if you like.
Anytime, Steve.
Okay. That's Yoel Inbar, Associate Professor, Psychology, University of Toronto. He's also the co-host of a podcast called Two Psychologists, Four Beers. That sounds fun. Thanks a lot, Yoel.
Thanks, Steve.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is made possible through generous philanthropic contributions from viewers like you. Thank you for supporting TVO's journalism.